We will also be joined by the Executive Director for Institute for Energy Security, Nana Mwesi, and by the half-hour period, we should have him, and then we would want to have some perspective. We'll also bring you some numbers from the producers of power, which of their facilities are working, how much they're also producing based on the current chart, the latest we can get a hand on. And I tell you that we have authentic information on the subject as well. But this is what we have to go through. Again, when it comes to the numbers, we'll have them on the screens for you shortly. And so if we can just go through, well, so we have what we call the cash waterfall mechanism. And on the screens, you'll see that we have the revenue distribution model requiring ECG to pay IPPs. And according to the communication, the collection as well as the payment should be in the region of some $43 million. So the question we'll be asking is the ECG paying the IPPs this, or the producer, so to speak? Now, they are at least supposed to receive, being the type of levels they are. And so for those on level B, they are supposed to receive 300 million cedis monthly. Now, the remaining revenue is then shared to other players based on agreed proportions by way of that production level. Now, level A beneficiaries we know are the main producers. So we have Sempa, Amandi, Asogli. We all know Asogli. They've been with us since the Kufuor administration. And then AXA Energy as well. Then we have level B beneficiaries being thermal, being the hydro producers, VRA, Bui also having a mix as well, managing some level of solar at some level. And then a Great Coal, ECG, among others. Subsequently, we know that the PRC report is indicating that the ECG reported a total revenue of some 820 million cedis for the month of January, not of this year, of course. So payments made to level A beneficiaries total 120 million cedis instead of 540 million cedis. So we'll be asking those in the energy think tanks why we're having this. Is it an anomaly or just a normal thing as well? Now, payment to level B beneficiaries was 162 million cedis instead of 300 million cedis we earlier showed you as part of the cash waterfall distribution. And then also beneficiaries like Great Coal, VRA, according to the report, received no payment for January. ECG, according to what we know, was supposed to pay itself the required 62 million cedis. Did they do that? Yep. Key issues about accountability and then being transparent when it comes to the issues, because it comes to the core of what is at the heart of the conversation for all of us, because we are all experiencing what we're calling Dumsor. As it is, we know that during the State of the Nation address, we had the President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, stating that in the meantime, ECG has been able to secure a fixed monthly energy purchase price with all the IPPs. This has led to a monthly payment of $43 million instead of $77 million. That is monthly savings of 34 million, or a 44% reduction in monthly payments, a far better outcome than the take or pay system inherited. Rightly so. Now, we'll be joined by Nana Mwesi with the Institute of Energy Security. In the meantime, he made a post and he says the rampant power outage without a timetable is giving you that migraine. Don't worry, the ECG don't explain again. Now this time, according to the ECG, 630 distribution transformers capacity gets exhausted overnight. So according to the ECG, the situation is resulting in blown fuses and broken conductors, causing outages, especially during peak load period for you, the ordinary consumer. Well, I'm also included, all of us actually. We're all not exempted. So the peak period is always from 7 p.m. to 11 period, and they are assuring customers that transformer upgrading and new projects are ongoing, 630 number. And this are expected to relieve these transformers to ensure a more reliable power supply. Adam Agbana, thank you for joining us. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Roland.
Great. Member, parliamentary candidate for Ketu North. Now, is government concerned about this? Do you think this is a national security issue or is just a blip? Because we've been experiencing this for a long time.
Roland, a very good morning to you and to my very good friend Adam, and congratulations to him on his parliamentary elections. And let me take this opportunity to mourn again, because the New Patriotic Party is mourning our Member of Parliament for Juso, and the government as well is mourning the Deputy Minister for Finance, the Honorable John Apuntu Akuma. And so we're in a mournful state. Whilst we are that, we also have a country to lead and we have governance to do. I'm sure that the government is very concerned, obviously, of the challenges that we are having with our power outages. I'm not too sure if we can equate that as you want to in terms of a national security threat, because these are temporary issues that we go through. You read the announcement that came from the ECG, which is very clear that there is a lot more installation of some distribution of transformers. And as a result of that, that will cause a lot more of challenges in some selected areas. I would want to state to the Ghanaian people that within the shortest possible time, once these transformers have been installed effectively in the various regions and the various cities and the various towns, power will be fully restored to the Ghanaian people.
When you take cognizance of what the ECG has been saying, and then you relate it to consumers having been experiencing power outages over time, indeed over the last year, there had been concerns, and we've had responses by the ministry, the PRC, and some other stakeholders within the sector. Don't you think the clarion call that we need a timetable is important to enable consumers plan?
No, I don't discount that. I mean, I think that with even the planning of installing transformers in the various towns and regions and cities, definitely there would come along a time plan and time slot, so that people would be aware that within this period we would go to Awoshi, or would go to Kumasi, or we'll go to Takrady, or we'll go to Tamale. I mean, I think that would not be too far-fetched off for the ECG to bring out. But I will state that this is not the Dumsor that people are trying to equate it to, and okay. I think that as a country it's important that we don't need to be celebrating when challenges are going through in the country in terms of power or any other challenges in the value stream of our governance processes. It affects all of us, whether MPP or NDC, but it's important that we don't equate it to what it used to be in years past, because even as we sit here, I'm not sure if TV3 as a network is on any generator as we speak now. You're running on the national grid, and so clearly it's just because of the peak season. I think that the ECG has been clear with it and has stated that between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. People would have these challenges, and I experienced that as well within the neighborhood that I live in. I have people who also experience that, and so all of us are bearing with the installation of transformers that the ECG needs to go through, and I'm very certain that before the month goes to an end, we should be able to see that various transformers have been reinstalled in the various transforming units.
Right. Adam, and you visit the constituency a lot, just like Palgrave also here. When you relate and have interactions with your constituents beyond what you experience yourself, what is the concern?
Well, let me say good morning to our cherished viewers across the world, and a special good morning to the good people of Ketu North, my people. Over the weekend, I I wasn't in a constituency. I had the opportunity to travel to Techiman. First, on Saturday, I was in Kasua to mourn with our constituency chairman, Chairman Ejari, who buried his mother. And on Sunday, I was in Techiman for the inauguration of the Youth Working Committee led by the Honorable Haruna Idrisu and the youth organizers in the Bono East region, Samari and Ejenim Boatin. And surprisingly, even in Techiman, we experienced Dumsor at least 3 times during the program. Roland, we have a national security crisis at hand with regards to electricity. And what is even more serious is the fact that leadership is unable to admit that they have failed when it comes to electricity.
How do you mean?
Issues. Roland, what is Dumsor?
Power outages, I mean, as we knew it.
So, when it was President Mahama, they classified it as Dumsor. But under President Anado Dankwa Akufo-Addo, all sorts of technical explanations and all of that has been given. The ultimate is that the good people of Ghana want to have lights, electricity. Is that not it? So anything other than that is Dumsor. So you have power outages, even more severe than it was in the past. And yet, government is failing to admit they have failed to provide a timetable because they want to run with the narrative that President Mahama's government came with Dumsor and they don't have any Dumsor under. But the point is that we are not getting light. And so there is Dumsor. The very day President Akufo-Addo stood before Parliament to present the State of the Nation address, for most parts of the country, they did not have electricity. And so when you stand before the people of Ghana, addressing them, and you are telling them that you have addressed Dumsor, there is no problem with electricity, the lights are on, you have kept the lights on. And ironically, at the time you were presenting or you were giving your presentation, for most parts of this country, the lights were off. That is dishonesty. And it is important for President Akufo-Addo, Dr. Bawumia, and my friends in the NPP to admit that they have collapsed the economy and it has repercussions in the energy sector. Roland, let me tell you, where we are today, there are 3 issues, 3 things that are disturbing the energy sector.
Which are what?
1 is debt. The government owes the independent power producers in excess of 1.5 billion. And that is just the problem. They are owing 1.5 billion. Despite all the loans that they have gone for, despite all the monies that they are raising, all the inflows from the Energy Sector Levies Act, this government owes in excess of 1.5 billion to the independent power producers. It is one of the reasons why the lights are not on. Number 2, as we speak today, ECG has undertaken what we call a recalibration, and consumers of electricity are paying more for electricity than they ought to pay. Roland, they are not admitting that. But if you open your phone lines on this show and you ask Ghanaians to call in, they will tell you that they are paying more for electricity. So people who used to consume 300 Ghana cedis worth of electricity for a week or a month are today paying about 600, 700 Ghana cedis. And yet they are telling you that electricity is cheaper. What sort of dishonesty is this? That you have done a recalibration, people are spending more, they are paying more for electricity than they used to. And yet, you are running with the narrative that you are providing electricity at a cheaper rate and all of that. And this explanation from ECG about whatever transformers and all of that simply cannot be true, Roland. It cannot be true because when you talk about electricity expansion under the NDC government, and in fact, in order for us to reach the universal access, government ought to increase access to electricity by 11.5% annually. As we speak, this government is doing 0.8%. So you are expanding electricity at only 0.8%. At the time that the NDC government had done over 22.74% of electricity expansion, you are doing 0.8% of electricity expansion annually. And yet you are claiming that because of increased demand or increased consumption, there's so much pressure on your transformers, and that's why we are experiencing these so-called technical challenges. Government ought to be honest to the good people of Ghana. Look, leadership demands that when you are confronted with a challenge, you accept the challenge, come up with a solution, and then you provide the solution. And that's what John Mahama did.
Where is the non-acceptance of the challenge? The Electricity Company of Ghana, the main distributor of electricity to our home, says 630 transformers are being refurbished or replaced or whatever, and that's the technical solution.
Roland, Gridco is shedding in excess of 450 megawatts of power each day. Gridco. And I dare you to call them for them to deny this. They are shedding in excess of 450 megawatts of power each day. And the number one gentleman of the land, the president of the republic, only a couple of days or weeks ago, told Parliament in his State of the Nation address that we have kept the lights on. You have kept which lights on? I just drove past the Flagstaff House. Yes, the lights are on at the Flagstaff House. The lights may be on in his Nima residence, but just around him and the people that are close to him, they don't have access to electricity. For many of us, and come to my constituency, Ketu North, we have a challenge with electricity where that almost every single day, you have lights going on from 6 a.m. till about 4 p.m.
In your constituency?
In my constituency. In some parts, they will come with all sorts of explanations about certain technical challenges. But the fundamental issue is that we don't have light, and that is Dumsor. So where is the we have kept the light on narrative coming from? All we are expecting from them is that, look, President Mahama was confronted with the challenge of Dumsor. But that was not the first time Ghana faced Dumsor. Even in the 80s, Ghana faced Dumsor. When President Kufuor had the opportunity, his solution to Dumsor was to parade pastors and send them to Akosombo to go and pray for rains. That was President Kufuor's solution. But President Mahama came and said, look, this problem of generation capacity ought to stop. I want to address the problem. He invested heavily in the energy sector. And at the time we left office, we had solved the problem of Dumsor. They came and accused us of producing excess capacity. And in the face of the excess capacity, their incompetence, their mismanagement, the corruption within the energy sector has run the sector to the level where, as we speak today, we cannot even keep the lights on. They are owing, they have debt, even to the IPPs alone, in excess of 1.5 billion. And so when they are telling us that they have kept the lights on, it is nothing but a blatant lie. They must accept that they have failed, and the only solution for us to get the lights on and get it on sustainably for a long period is to have John Dramani Mahama back as President of the Republic.
Well, we have also joining us on the stream the Executive Director for the Institute of Energy Security, Nana Moisi. Nana Moisi, good morning to you. And you made a post, interestingly, on your social media platforms, and particularly just making reference to your Facebook post. You seem to challenge the position of the main power distributor we have in the Republic of Ghana, the ECG, that they are either replacing or servicing their own transformers in excess of 600. So 630 exactly. You are not the power distributor, Nana Moisi, as a think tank. So what are you saying?
Good morning, Roland. Good morning to your panelists and your viewers across the world. I am not the only person, or the IES, not the only organization that has challenged the position of ECG relative to the outages in recent times. The PRC had a cause to state last 2 weeks that we are seeing what we are seeing today because of fuel supply challenge. The ECG contested that, and there became a rift between the two. Lately or yesterday, similar thing happened relative to payments that the ECG have to make to the IPPs and other state-owned organizations within the sector. I think that it's even about time that the ECG and the PRC reconcile their differences. But moving forward, Roland, of course, we have been watching the space for quite a long time, and we understand what's some of the initiatives or projects when undertaken and abide with, stuck with, will ensure that we have sustainable, reliable power supply. We know very well that today we are producing less than our system peak demand. I've tracked from the beginning of the year to today, in the morning, in the afternoon, and at peak hours, and the IES can confirm that we are producing or generating less power than we require as a country. Our peak demand is hovering around 3,650 megawatts. Since the beginning of the year, we've not produced in excess of 3,300 megawatts before. And so it means that there's a shortfall. I checked last 2 days, and the system, production of power was roughly 3,120. And so if our peak demand is 3,600 thereabouts, it leaves a gap of about 500 megawatts. We've also seen that some power plants are not working, though they should be in a position to work, aside Ameri that is being moved to the Ashanti region. But some power plants have not been working for quite a long time. And I can mention the Asogli plant. And it's just the last 2 weeks that Asogli is able to produce something around 500 megawatts, a plant that can do a little above that. But consistently, it's been producing far below 300 megawatts for lack of fuel supply, particularly from the Nigeria line. And so if somebody comes to tell us today that what we are going through, and Roland, I've been in Cape Coast for the last 12 days.
12 days?
And I can 12 days. There is no single day that you don't have an outage in Cape Coast.
Cape Coast?
It happens in the morning, it happens in the afternoon, it happens in the night. So it's not only at peak hours when demand is high. At every particular time, you have an outage either in Abura, at Pedu, at UCC, at Ola, Kotakuraba. It can happen at any time. I'm waiting to see what will happen this morning. Last night, I didn't see one. I want to see this morning. And so if you come and tell us that we'll be seeing some of these outages because you have 630, and look at how the number rhymes, 630 transformers that are full to capacity. And so if we load them on, there's likely going to be some, trippings of conductors and other things. And so from 7, we should be expecting something. So it's happening already in the morning and the afternoon. So it's not only at peak hours.
Okay.
It also tells us that we have not invested into the national grid. If it's the case that we have these issues with the transformers, it means we have not invested and there was no planned investment. How could you sit down? That's how you tell me it happened overnight.
Wow. My hope is the internet.
That's 630 transformers or there's some problem. We know as a country that on average, until last 2 years, we're growing at almost 9%. Our electricity consumption grows. The last 2 years, that is growing around 6% per annum. So you should have planned to either invest in the grid, to upgrade the grid, or to maintain. But the lack of maintenance or the upgrade also goes to show clearly that the fundamentals are weak.
Right.
We have a financial constraint here.
Right.
That's why we are seeing what we are seeing. It's not a transformer issue, Roland.
Well, Dr. Peter Anti, and the Institute of for just also saying that he lives in Cape Coast and, of course, also experiences as well as a number of my friends and cousins as well. But at the end of the day, there's a bigger question. So the latest report we have, we'll take it from yesterday, of which of the plants are working for the various IPPs, and we'll put that on the screen for you from our sources within the energy sector, the latest system conditions. And that also gives you a perspective on which of their plants are being used, all right? Okay, so this one is as of yesterday. So we had just for, so we have for Senate, we have Siemens, as well as for T3, as well as for the thermal plant in Pong, the Ameri plant. We also have Amandi for the reading for 7 hours. That will be yesterday morning, not working. As for Gensa and the rest, you can find them as well in the total load, etc. Now, let's go to the next one. All right. Now, this is for this morning, and this is the latest reports we have from being the system condition for the various plants. And this is just about, because we're just 49 minutes past the hour, so just 49 minutes ago, the various entities within the production enclave for power, 49 minutes ago, got this latest report for the system condition of their plants, which ones are being used. Senate, Siemens, Asogli, just has 4. Then we have T3, 0. Thermal plant in Pong, 0. Ameri, 0. Please go up. Amandi, 0. And you have subsequently those there. That should be a main concern for us. Now, security boss, spokesperson, and to be sincere, don't you think we need a timetable? Sort of what the ECG, the distributor, is telling us about 630 transformers being worked on, as a consumer even, sincerely.
Roland, you see this data you're able to share?
Yes, please.
It's been made possible because our government has been effective. You would not have had real-time data.
Are you saying that 20 years ago we didn't have data?
Real-time data as it is today. That you can get real-time data of power as it is being consumed. Real-time data. You will not. It's because our government has made it possible that you as a journalist can get real-time data. The Ghanaian people can have real-time data. Every single person who is a stakeholder within the energy sector can have real-time data of power that is being consumed, of these ones, Akosombo, Pong plants, Azogli, all of it. Real-time data. It's come because our government has been effective. Now, Roland, suffice to state that yes, a call for a timetable is not a challenge. But it is important that we do not let it look as though the Dumsor that we experienced of old is what we're experiencing. I mean, I didn't think that this morning we would enter into such a political debate of Dumsor as it was and the power challenges that we have today. I can see how the NDC is struggling to equate their Dumsor to our minimal power challenges that we are facing in the electricity sector now. I see it, and I'm sad that my good friend Adam would pronounce such injustice on this conversation, because the Dumsor that it was of the NDC, I mean, Roland, you know, I mean, he knows as well that it is not the same. And we really must not even be talking about the Dumsor of old, because the NDC is a forgotten and gone party. We are talking about the new patriotic party. We're talking about the government of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and how we can be able to deal with our teething challenges. And we have stated that, yes, of a truth, we are having some power challenges. And it is primarily because of the demand. And because of the demand, we are stating that within the peak periods, between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m., some places would experience power outages because the ECG is beginning to change these transformers. And I think that we need to be able to take it as it is. And it's true, yes, the PRC met with the ECG sometime last week and raised up these concerns and issues that were coming from the length and breadth of this country. But to state that the Dumsor of old, that was a 24-hour Dumsor. It was a 24-hour Dumsor. 7 days in a week, Dumsor. People had to buy plant. People had to buy generator. Industries had to close down. There was a total recession in the private sector because people could not manage and keep up. But as we sit here on your network, I'm not sure your plant is on because you're on the national grid. I'm not sure industries have closed down because they're on the national grid. And so really, I think that we should not get into the state of wanting to compare the Dumsor of old and the power challenges that we are having today. But I'm certain that if there is a need for a timetable, that timetable will come up. But it is important to state that, yes, these transformers are going to be replaced. The Ghanaian people are going to continue to enjoy the lights that we have kept on. We've kept the lights on over these years. You remember when we had to pay continually a lot of money to make sure that we keep the lights on because there was a bad negotiation that was done by the NDC. But I don't want to get into a debate of NDC, MPP this morning. We want to be able to move forward as a country. We have challenges now. These transformers are going to be fixed. The Ghanaian people are going to continue to enjoy the light that we have provided for them from 2017 till date. And there is no Dumsor. We need to be able to state it as it is. There is no Dumsor. There is no Dumsor. There is no Dumsor.
I have this message from Dr. Carl Dominio, who lives in North Carolina, United States of America, Charlotte, to be more specific.
Oh, I know Charlotte.
You know Charlotte?
Yes, I know Charlotte.
Right. And he says that he's lived in Ghana, he's experienced Dumsor in the past. Why is it that it becomes a subject of blaming it because it happened a long period under John Dramani Mahama? And this time when it's been experienced for a year, it is not comparable for citizens to make a conclusion that it is Dumsor.
Oh, I don't think that he's lived in Ghana for a year. I mean, he lives in Charlotte in the U.S. Are you trying to say that we have experienced power outages for a year, for 12 months in this country?
Intermittently, yes.
No, please. Roland, then I'm not too sure. We have not experienced power outages in this country for a year.
Intermittently?
Intermittently, yes. For a year.
You have not?
No, I have not. Intermittently for a year, that the power has been out every single time intermittently for a year, for 12 months. Even if you talk about intermittently and you put all together, it could come to a constellation of about 2 months. If you put all together in the period of 1 year, scattered across the various months and scattered across 365 days. And I'm saying that, you see, if it wasn't the fact that my good friend Edem had brought in Dumsor and the consistent introduction of Dumsor into the MPP regime and the government of President Nana Danko Akufo-Addo, I will not have gone back because I don't want to remind Ghanaians of their plight. I don't want to remind Ghanaians of their challenges. I don't want to remind Ghanaians who lost family members, who lost relatives as a result of Dumsor. I don't want to remind Ghanaians of those. I want to remind Ghanaians of the future that we have created. I want to remind the Ghanaians of the best leadership that President Nana Danko Akufo-Addo has provided. I want to remind Ghanaians of how we have kept the lights on from 2017 till date. I want to remind Ghanaians of how we have managed the power sector effectively. I want to remind Ghanaians of the air that they breathe freely every day. So really, for me, I mean, Roland, we don't want to compare the Dumsor that became a global conversation that Professor P.L. Lumumba had to even state that it was being considered to be put in a dictionary. We don't want to go there because it reminds Ghanaians of a lot of pain. It reminds Ghanaians of a lot of money that they have lost. It reminds Ghanaians of the businesses that were closed down. We don't want to remind Ghanaians of that. Ghanaians are reminded of how we have built their businesses, how we have caused their industries to strive. They are reminded about how we have kept the lights on consistently. They are reminded about how we have saved the lives of people. And even you today, Roland, you can get real-time data from the energy sector because...
I don't understand. You created WhatsApp.
We didn't create WhatsApp.
We created the internet?
No, we didn't create the internet. But you know what I'm talking about? For you to get real-time data of the power stations that are happening, it wasn't so. State it. That's the truth. It's a fact. It wasn't so.
What do you mean by it wasn't so?
In the years past, would you be able to get real-time data of how much power is being consumed and who is distributing what? Would you be able to get that? You won't get that.
Then how did we know, or even civil society get to know 4 years back, 8 years back?
Because they will need to request for it. Now, today, you can get it in real time. You can get data of power that has been produced from the various power stations, even at 7:57 today.
Right.
Because we have been able to manage the power sector effectively. But let's not go into the politics of this. The Ghanaians want to see that the transformers are restored. The Ghanaians want to see that their lights are on in the various places where we are having those outages. They are called power outages. It is not Dumsor, as people want to forcibly put it on the throat of the Ghanaian people.
Right.
Because Ghanaian people, remember, they have a resemblance of what Dumsor is. This is not likened unto the Dumsor of John Dramani Mahama. This is power challenges and outages.
Nana Moisi, are you there? Nana Moisi.
Yes, Roland, I am still with you and your panelists.
Before Adam comes in, how do you classify this? Because as far as I know, I remember the finance minister, well, the former finance minister, the one now appointed to be in charge of international stakeholder finance, or what's the new position of Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta? Now, having a negotiation settlement with the various IPPs, for which I have information up to date, and this information up to date says that that period of negotiating from April to about June, where payment will be made by the finance ministry on behalf of ECG, hasn't been made. Now, how would you describe this period, what we're experiencing in terms of the power outages? Is it Dumsor or not Dumsor?
Well, Roland, I've listened to my good friends at the studio, and in the studio, I think they are engaging in the context of mediocrity, and they are seeking to tell Ghanaians who is doing not so bad. I thought they would take time to say, we did good and we did better and we are the best here. Let me correct an impression here. Data or system condition data has been with us for more than 15 years. In fact, it was only up to the last 4 years that we cannot track the system condition on Gridco's website directly, but we have to go through the back door and get the data. It's been there for every Ghanaian to know which plants are running and how much we are churning out at every particular minute for many years. Point of correction.
Let me get this straight. You're saying that over the last 10, 15 years, you used to track in real time, and because, of course, the internet wasn't created just in the last 7 years, real-time data from the power transmitter. That would be Gridco, right?
Exactly my point. You won't have it in this form as we have it today as a condition sheet, but then you will be able to see all the plants that are running and how much they are churning out every second. It existed until recently. Let me give you another indication or something that we also come to find at Roland. In the Energy Commission's electricity supply plan or projected electricity supply, reports, you will have every year how much downtime we had as a country, or how many hours, days, and months we spent experiencing power outages. Until the last 4 years, you can now have it in that report. It's out as well. But let's leave it in that position. Roland, we don't need to engage in those politics. It won't help us. You see, one way to make your work easier for you is to accept your challenge, call it by its name, and find antidotes that will heal that name. But if you say, you go to a doctor and say, doctor, in fact, my leg is paining me. Meanwhile, this is not your leg, it's your head. Call it by that name so you can get support in that direction. Roland, the amount of investments the previous government did, and so I should say, the present government also did in 2019 and 20, it's so heavy to the extent that we shouldn't have been seeing what we are seeing today.
I don't understand.
Okay, I'm saying that before 2019, we have invested heavily into the power sector. First, making sure that we have adequate amount of power installed enough dependable power capacity to meet our peak demand and also to give us some comfort with a reserve margin of more than 18%. It means that you now have a good car, a car that's good for the road, a robust one to hit the road. What was left to do is to make sure that you have a very good road network. So a very strong transmission grid, a very strong distribution grid. Then you must concern yourself with, how do I buy fuel for this power plant? Because I, as a government, have committed to pay for the fuel that is supplied to the power plants by third parties. If you can do that, then of course your car is there, your fuel is, adequate enough to support you. A very good, road to hit on to make sure that you deliver that goods that was generated for you at the end of the consumer. That's all we needed to do. We went further to look at the legacy debt in the sector, almost about 2.7 billion. And government in 2015 December introduced ESLA to make sure that that's going to generate for us. Even we kept the level of fuel consumption same for 10 years. Annually, it was supposed to generate us something roughly $650 million. So in 5 years, we should have cleared the legacy debt. We chose to collateralize it. And today, we are still paying for ESLA. ESLA today is giving us more than $650 million annually for free. Something we don't need today. We don't need ESLA today. Because it was planned for some period for free. We had some costs. It was not too much as a cost-reflective tariff. But government at a point chose to reduce the tariff. That is going to affect the revenue of the power players. Today, thank God, we are almost getting a cost-reflective tariff, thanks to the World Bank or IMF. So the kind of investment that was done, to the point that we invested in the grid, transmission grid to move power from here to our neighboring countries. All that we need to do is look at our transformers, the capacitors, just within our local domain. We failed to do. Because today, when ECG or NETCO is given about 1,000 megawatts to sell, it can account for more than 70%, 30% of this power, either through technical reason or commercial reason. Gridco, or the transmitter, is also losing almost 5% to technical reason. Go to Asia, go to the Philippines, go to China. Their transmission losses combined with distribution is not more than 3.5%, Roland. So we should invest more in the grid, both the transmission and the distribution. It will help us a lot and save us money.
Okay,
so of course
so let me get this. You're saying that we have enough capacity, or we had invested in enough capacity, right? So
sure.
Over the last couple of years, the policy direction should have been in investing in the grid and then the distribution. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, so that you can make some savings, you can deal with the losses in that sector, bring it down to the barest minimum. Then you manage the sector.
Okay.
But let me add this one as well.
Shortly.
Roland, what we are going through today is a financial constraint. We are not able to pay all the players in the value chain, including ECG itself, the amount of money they need and they require to upgrade and maintain their system. BECO is not having enough to maintain its system. The IPPs, VRE, are not having enough money to maintain their system. That's why you see some power plants down. It works for some hours and have to shut down because plant maintenance is not being adhered to for reason of illiquidity. Good morning, Roland.
Good morning means you are going off. I have a last question for you. Just indulge me. Take some tea. Indulge me. Adam. At the end of the day, the conversation is that we shouldn't be comparing periods. But what do you tell your constituents if they ask you this question? And even you as a consumer, what do you tell yourself when you're experiencing this?
Roland, I'm happy that Nana Amwasi just concluded by touching on the point I made earlier, that government is dishonest. No two ways about that. But all of this conversation as to whether or not it is technical issues with transformers and all of that, the biggest problem we face in the sector is the financial constraints. It's a financial issue. And I mentioned that government is owing IPPs 1.5 billion. He has even added that even ECG is being owed by government. And so government is unable to fulfill their financial obligations to all the players in the value chain. And that is why we are where we are today. I'm surprised. And you see, sometimes I pray that my colleagues in the NPP, they help us to elevate the conversation.
What do you mean by that?
Because we are talking about people not getting electricity. We are talking about the fact that even when the lights comes on, there is what we call low voltage, what a lot of people call low current. So sometimes, last 2 weekends, I was in the constituency. For the entire day, lights were on, and yet you simply cannot even keep a fan on because of the so-called we call low current, but it's called low voltage. These are the challenges. And then when you are asked whether or not ECG should be providing us with timetable, we are talking about data. Data. That my people in Ehik, Begwekope, they want their lights on, and you are telling them because you are able to provide them with data on even a current sheet or the whatever data in the power sector, that should be enough for them. You are telling us that under NDC, when the light goes off, it qualifies to be Dumsor, but under you, it is technical challenges. The good people of Ghana watching us are the best judges. They can see through the double standards and the hypocrisy of this government. They can see through how the government takes them for a ride, to the extent that you as a spokesperson of government, people are hurt that their lights are not on. People are complaining that their equipment, electrical appliances are getting spoiled. Only 3 weeks ago, I had to replace my refrigerator because of these power outages and all of that. People are complaining that they are not getting lights to do the very basic things that they want to do. And you are telling them that if it is Mahama, it is Dumsor. But if it is Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, it is technical challenges. Why do you take the people of Ghana for a ride this way? Look, Roland, what is happening in the energy sector today? What is happening in the energy sector today? It's a serious matter because, like Nana said, President Mahama did not only solve the problem of Dumsor before leaving office. He envisaged that there was a legacy debt in the sector. How do I solve it? He introduced ESLA. Then candidate Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawumia, who was then described as an economic whiz kid, who today is running away from the economy, told us that ESLA was a nuisance tax. They classified ESLA as a nuisance tax, promised the people of Ghana that when they come, they will scrap ESLA. Not only did they maintain ESLA, they increased the rate of ESLA. Today, ESLA gives them close to $1 billion a year, and yet they cannot even keep the lights on. The mismanagement, the corruption, and the incompetence is so glaring. Roland, let them be honest with us. Give us a timetable. Tell the good people of Ghana that it is because you are owing the energy sector players. That is why we have this problem today. And the comparison, you see, Roland, there's a reason why we will keep going back to the issues of comparison. Because at the end of the day, we have two gentlemen who are presenting themselves to be elected as president. We have John Dramani Mahama, who has been president before. He met a problem, addressed the people of Ghana, told them what he wanted to do to solve the problem, and indeed, before he left office, he solved the problem. You have another gentleman who today is the chairman of the economic management team. Under his watch, we see the mess, we see the incompetence, and yet they are not even honest enough to admit that we have a challenge. The good people of Ghana will vote for the person that they can trust, and that is John Dramani Mahama.
Why is it important that consumers like you and I, or even Edem and Dem Pargrave, are given a timetable or a schedule? Why is that critical also, based on the experiences we've had? shortly.
Roland, because the outages has been extended, it's not an outage that's occurred just in a week. But then we've seen, let's even put last year behind us, but from the beginning of the year, every day, one area or the other, either my hometown, Ekunfiaboro, or somebody's hometown, is seeing an outage. And so it's extended. It makes sense to produce a timetable so that we can plan our lives, so that people can also, go about their business in such a way that they don't even lose customers. It's also for security reason. If I know I'm not going to have lights between this period and that period, it informs my judgment as to how I secure myself. And so it's very important. A timetable is a must-have. It's not something we must beg for. It's our right as consumers. It's the right of my panelists to have a timetable. It's Roland's right to have a timetable from the ECG and NETCO. This is not something we must beg for. It's a necessity.
Where do you think we're headed with the current trend of communication coming from the various individual, whether they're producers, they're transporters, or they're distributors, the ECG, if we don't have a timetable?
If we don't have a timetable, then you are frustrating people. If you don't have a timetable, then you intend to bury some vital information. And Roland, let me add this one. I don't normally like to be a prophet of doom. If we're not careful, the power sector will collapse.
Why?
The next government, I don't know who, will inherit a very bad power sector come 2025. Market on the wall. If the trend continues, if the leakages in the system continue, if the revenue is not shored up, the mobilization is not shored up, and the financial constraint is not dealt with, or a policy put in place to begin to be dealing with it, trust me, the next government will tire.
All right, so we have Lydia come on our stream also saying that my fridge got spoiled too. These are real issues. People are not lying. And then also, Prince Kwejuase says, Ghanaians need a visionary, innovative, industrious, competent, incorruptible, and selfless leader to manage the affairs of this country. And he says, Prince Kwejuase, Dr. Mahmoud Dubaumia outweighs John Dramani Mahama. I also have Nelson Yesu Kofia Kotia saying, I agree, all may make all the arguments, but the best option is also John Mahama at the end of the day. And then we have others. Obrin Ponkaba says, I don't know why our politicians always feel that they are accountable to only themselves and their parties. They prefer to do damage control for themselves and their parties more than to God and country. All right. With this, Ghana will make it that. Now, Rex Akambe says, 2012 to 2016, Dumsor was as a result of long periods of neglect by previous regimes of the energy sector. Mahama saved the generation problem. All right. Now, they said we shouldn't be politicking with this subject. So can we tone down the politics? At least Nana Moise is telling us.
Roland, I'm sure that the ECG would provide a timetable. Would appeal to ECG to provide a timetable on this, and also I'm certain that as a country and as a government, we are turning our attention to ensure that we are solving the challenges as it relates to finances. But I'm sure that the Ministry of Finance has clearer attention to that effect, and so the IPPs will begin to give the power. So Nana should be rest assured in Cape Coast that the lights would be on in Kotokraba and Pedu and all the various areas, that the lights will be on. And I'm very certain that when the lights are on, Nana will come back to state that the lights are on, and also to state that Nana's prophecy will not be fulfilled, that the the power sector will collapse. So
are you saying that somebody who works in the industry has been working? I've known Nana Mwesi for the last 15 years. Are you saying he's lying?
I've not said that. I said his prophecy will not come true. Roland, don't be mischievous this morning. I didn't say that. I said that he even said that he's not trying to be a prophet of doom. So I'm just saying that his prophecy is not going to come true because we're going to make sure that we keep the lights on and we pay for the IPPs. Lastly, Roland, please, just to appeal to the Ghanaian people as well, that pay for what you use. When you consume electricity, pay for it. Pay for
what do you mean by that?
It's simple. If you owe electricity, go and pay your bills. So pay for what you use, and I'm sure Nana would agree with me. And so Nana, between yourself and I and Adam, let's encourage the Ghanaians to pay their electricity bills. I mean, Adam, I'm sure that you can join in this campaign, because this is a non-partisan campaign that we appeal to Ghanaians to pay their electricity bills. And Nana is nodding, and I'm certain that Nana will add his voice to this as well, that Ghanaians should pay their electricity bills, pay your utilities, because as a government, we're also making sure that we're reducing the cost of electricity on the consumer.
Adam, it looks like Palgrave's last commentary has been more reconciliatory.
I mean,
how do you appeal to
it is simply
everyone and sundry to make sure we all fall in line?
You see, it is simply because he has come to the realization, at least on the show this morning, that indeed they have failed with regards to the energy sector. Roland, for some of us, our tone is not partisan, whether we are being hard on the government. What we are simply asking is that government must be accountable to the good people of Ghana. When you have the state losing over 500 million in what happened in the PDS scandal, all those things are affecting the sector today. Roland, I forgot to mention that Nana mentioned that government has not invested much in the distribution and all. Are you aware that the Compact 2...
Transmitting and distributing.
Yeah, transmitting and distributing. But the Compact 2 money that they received, it's supposed to be for that. So
you
what
mean
has
the
happened?
Millennium Challenge? The
Millennium Challenge, the Compact 2 is supposed to be for that. So is it relevant? Our point is that government cannot give us any excuse at this point for which reason the lights are not on. The only reason why the lights are off is that we have too much corruption at the sector, we have mismanagement, and we have dishonesty at the peak of government. Palgrave can decide to be reconciliatory and all of that. That is insignificant to us. What we want is to have our lights on. And when they are on, the capacity should be enough to fuel our fridges, TVs, fans, and everything. The low voltage, we are not even talking about it. Then lastly, let me appeal to Nana Mwesi. He has mentioned it. I mentioned it earlier, that there is this complaint about the so-called recalibration that ECG has done, that people are paying more for electricity now. Maybe his CSOs and the others should take it up, because when you speak to the average consumer like myself, the amount of money we spend on electricity, even in the face of all these power outages, it's about 3 or 4 times what we used to spend when these challenges were not there. And yet government is running with the narrative that electricity is cheaper today than it was. Sometimes I begin to believe that this government and their functionaries like Palgrave are living in a world of their own. They have lost touch with reality. They are not facing the problems that we are facing as Ghanaians. And that is why their narrative is completely different from what we are, the stark realities on the ground. Keep the lights on and keep it on at an affordable price. That is what we are asking for from this incompetent government.
Nana Mwesi, just in 2 minutes, and that will be 120 seconds. What will be the clarion call for those managing distribution and then the appeal to the ordinary consumer within this tumultuous period?
All right, Roland, let me start with this. I was thinking that Adam will have taken the olive branch being extended to him by his good brother Palgrave, and he still veered into some political, seeking to score points. But I think that we are all coming to the realization that we need to deal with the issues and call them by name, so that we can save the sector. Yes, I also want to say that, yes, if my good brother says the sector is not going to collapse, then I'm sure that he knows what's under his ambit, that they're going to deal with the issue, and that we have that situation. And let me put in my little fancy. And we've gone through the past and we know what we went through. That's why we don't want to sit aloof and watch it go same direction. That's the only sector that we have that drives our economy. No other sector is so critical than the power sector to the growth of an economy. But Roland, how do we end this and how do we address this? Yes, we must ensure that the revenue that we generate from the sale of the power is enough to take care of all the obligations, held by the utilities, whether an independent power producer, a state-owned enterprise, or whichever. We must do that. My good brother also asked that I should add my voice to the theft of power. I've done that on several platforms, my good brother, and I will do it now again.
Thank you.
That's in as much as we point our fingers at government, some other fingers, both of them are pointing at us. We steal power, we do diversion, we connive with even states, the ECG and NEDCO. We must desist from that because it will hurt us in the long run. We have also applauded the ECG on numerous occasions for their revenue mobilization drive, to the extent that they can even take elements. We must go ahead with this and save the sector.
All right. I know that this is a very important. We had two issues to talk about, but I think that this has taken our time, and it's good or a fair issue to deal with because all of us are in it. And before he became a chief or a traditional ruler, what's your traditional area in Anambwesi the 7th?
Ekunfi, just after Apam, all the way to Mankesim roundabout is Ekunfi.
Yeah.
And I'm the Nkobia Hinen of the traditional area and the chief of Ekunfi, Abor.
Yeah, and especially if you know those areas leading to Omem, as we call it, Ingresi, Iswisha, and all those areas, you will know certainly. And Anambwesi, I told you.
Roland, let me add this. Good morning to you, Roland. I just got your brother John Walker coming in this morning, saying good morning.
Right. My regards to him, certainly. And for all those in the central region and all those great people in the family, we wish you all the best. And Anambwesi used to be called Anamwasech, and sure. has great insights and experience, as well as schooling in financial management, risk management, etc. Went to KNUST, Coventry University. You know, for many of the times when we're speaking to some of the great people in civil society, especially in think tank or energy, we do that because of great reason. They have great experience. Work with Anglo Gold, Tema Oil Refinery. We're also talking about Bost, etc. So they really have insight into the subject, as well as leading young politicians who also have varied experiences when it comes to all the issues, whether it's even national security as well. Adam Agbana himself pursuing bigger studies when it comes to that. And then we have also Palgrave. But Palgrave, I think the clarion call is that all of us need to have a national conversation on many of these. Palgrave Bachidankwa, great guy. I love your watch. Make sure you get me one if you can.
Thank you, Roland.
I'm sure there's a lot of money flying around the corridors of power.
Please, we are servants.
And then also Adam Agbana, parliamentary candidate for Ketuna. You wanted to say something?
Are we ending?
Yes, we're ending.
Roland,
it's the birthday of my own daughter, and we're talking about MFA Tamaklo, who is the daughter of Chairman Godwin Tamaklo, the chief executive for the RAID Group. And I wish you better in pictures at the end of the show, and also coming from your mother, Alice Tamaklo, as well. Wish you all the best. Be great, and may you fulfill your own destiny as ordained by God. For all of you who have joined us live on our stream, we have to say thank you for joining us. It's always a delight to have you. Let me just do some engagement by way of the messages. Dr. Carl Domenyo, Charlotte, North Carolina, says that please correct Mr. Palgrave Wachidanko, I give him all the respect. I have always visited Ghana consistently, sometimes 2-3 times in a year. The last year when I visited, twice in a year, all those periods when I stayed 2 to 3 weeks by way of the intervals, I experienced light out. I don't want to call it Dumsor, but at the end of the day, we have to be frank with each other. Dr. Carl Dominion, inside North Carolina, specifically Charlotte. Mr. Obing says, this rehearsed, parroting, parlance is not only nauseating, but an annoyance and opposition-bound propeller. Please, let's use nice language, okay? That's it. And then at the end of the day also, we have this also coming from Palgrave says I should do this on his behalf. Chinyo Jolly Nuneke, it's coming from your parents, Honeypot Academy at Denta. Many of you who have, we have Cash Out also, and all those who are, now Adam, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just 1 minute. Roland, since 2021, 2022, government introduced the issue of licensure exams. In 2022, those who sat for the exams, we are told that 42% passed and all of that. But till today, they are waiting on the GES to post them. I think that it's a national conversation that we must have. They are suffering. Many of these young people, they went through training. There are schools without teachers. Even in my constituency, there are schools without adequate number of teachers. So what is taking government so long to have these people posted or employed to go and teach? I think that I want to plead with you, TV3, to launch a national campaign for these people to be posted, because...
Which national campaign?
Yes, a national campaign on teachers to be posted, because 2022, 2023, people are still writing. People wrote again this year, 2024, for the licensure exams. They passed, they have the license, and then they are not being posted. Lastly, let's wish our Muslim brothers and sisters a good fast, and we pray that Allah himself will answer all their prayers. They should pray for peace, they should pray for development, and most importantly, they should pray for the return of John Dramani Mahama.
Well, as we're talking, I had this message from Chairman Prosper who said, my light just went off fume. Well, we'll see how that goes. And then Robert Coleman, good morning to you, Chief Executive, Wembley Sports Construction Company Limited. But thank you very much. We're taking a break. We'll be right back. Remember, we have Cash Out, and we have the short code *439#.